Hey guys, I'm going to give you some whole class feedback on part one of the final project portfolio. And I hope that you will take this feedback and do a little bit of adapting and keep moving forward towards the final part of the submission. So let me first get started by saying most of you guys did a wonderful job. You have a perfect start. There are a few of you that might need to address some things as far as changing your social problem or changing the topic. Those students have been reached out via email, so make sure you've checked your Nash Community College email account. If you haven't heard specifically from me via email, then this feedback video will apply great to you. Please also make sure that you take the time to check your feedback in Moodle. So if you go into the gradebook and back into the assignment, you should be able to see my feedback. Let me know if you have trouble accessing that. All right, so as a reminder, the social problem that you selected has to actually be a social problem. So make sure that you have reviewed these 4 resources here that I'm showing you on my screen. Make sure that you have looked over those. Look at examples of social problems and make sure that you're comfortable with what you selected. Also, just as a reminder, the social problem that you notate here in this box needs to be a very short, precise social problem, such as poverty or homelessness or domestic violence or addiction. All right, doesn't need to be this grandiose essay. It just needs to be a very short, carefully explained topic. So I can look at the words 2 or 3, maybe at the max, and I can tell you exactly what your social problem is. When we go into number 5, this is where all of you need to spend more time. And I'm totally fine with that. This is typical of this assignment because this was just kind of getting you started. But this analysis of your social problem by looking through the 3 main theories in sociology is essentially what the big, huge part of the rest of the assignment is going to be. And so I really need you to spend some time going back here, doing some research, and adding to this. So I understand that this is kind of a complex thought process and we don't always do a good job when we're just thinking about things in society with the 3 main theories. And I understand that. So that's why you're going to have to do some more research. And I'm also okay with you typing into Google and doing some reading, okay? I'm not a Google hater. There are certainly scholarly articles that you can read as well. And if you look into part 2 of the assignment, you're going to see that you have to do that. But I'm totally fine if you just do some light reading to kind of get your thought process going here. All right, so I'm going to give you some questions to think about each of the 3 theories and how you can apply that to your social problem. And then hopefully that'll give you some more things to add here. So you're probably going to be best to do bullet points here. And when I mean bullet points, I don't mean like a 2-word bullet point. I mean like a bullet point and maybe it is 2 or 3 words and then a colon and then you explain yourself, okay? Just that long list of a big long paragraph in this kind of chart's not really going to work. So I'm definitely going to suggest bullet points here to kind of highlight some things. All right, so when you're looking at structural functionalism, through the eyes of your social problem, I want you to think about how does the lack of proper functioning, so that means how does the lack of whatever it is your social problem is creating, how does that affect society in a negative way? Okay, so if you're doing poverty, all right, well, how does the lack of money, okay, so how does poverty affect society in a negative way? All right, so I mean, you may even list here, if that was your topic, yeah, well, Poverty affects the function of society because, and you are addressing the things that poverty affects in a negative way. Maybe poverty affects the crime rate. Maybe poverty affects the abuse rate. All right, so think about how your social problem is negatively affecting the smooth functioning of society. How is society better without that problem? So think about that in terms of, if this wasn't a problem, how much better would society be? What are some things that we would see in society if this problem didn't exist? And then I want you to think about structural things within maybe this country. So what are the structural things within our country that contribute to that problem? What are some things that you just kind of hit roadblocks along the way that contribute to this problem? So remember, when we're talking about structural functionalism, we are talking about the structure of society. So how we're grouped together, how we're pushed together into certain areas. So the structure of states, the structure of programs, the structure of governments, that kind of word structure is pretty overarching. All right, and then we think about the function of society. So the smooth functioning of society. How is that affected negatively with your social problem? All right, so now we're going to move to conflict theory. Okay, so conflict theory is all about conflict. Fighting, struggling, division, all things negative, I like to say here. So, is there a resource struggle within society that's adding to your social problem? Okay. Is there social and economic institutions that are using your social problem as a tool for more struggle? Are we doing things as a society to maintain that social problem in an effort to maintain inequality? All right, so are those power elites that make decisions within government, politicians, big business owners, those people that, make the most money and they're in the teeny tiny top 1% of society, all right? Are those people creating more issues in an effort to keep your social problem around? Because that is creating more inequality and more conflict and more struggle. Is there a dominant class of people that don't really care about that social problem? And is there a class of people that do care about that social problem? And is there conflict between those two groups? Are people divided on this issue? Talk about that. Talk about the division that occurs between people in society over this issue. And then think about certain groups that feel different ways about this issue. I will give you an example here when we talk about, if we're talking about addiction, okay? The conflict that exists within certain groups here is that some people believe that addiction is a daily choice. A person is making a conscious choice, and then some people will counter that argument with saying, well, addiction is in the medical dictionary as a medical condition These people are fighting a disease. So the fact that you got this group saying, oh, that's not a disease, that is a daily choice, and this group saying this is a medical issue that needs to be addressed. Okay, that's an example of something that you could put in conflict theory spot. And then finally, let's look at symbolic interactionism. This is probably the easiest because it's kind of got all the feels to it. Okay, so think about symbols or images that come to mind when you think about your social problem. So some sort of symbol or image that links you to that problem. Something that, an idea or a picture that you see and you immediately relate it to that social problem. A lot of times here, we can also put things that make us stereotype. So whether we like it or not, there are things in our world that we group together, and it is a way that we kind of stereotype things and apply them to topics. Okay, so you might want to go, if we're going to go with addiction, we might go with needles. All right, well, needles found in a bathroom. All right, if I see a needle in a public bathroom, what am I going to do? I'm going to stereotype that situation and go, somebody's been in here doing something they're not supposed to be doing. Okay, that's just an example. Any kind of creation in our mind that applies to the social problem, because symbolic interactionism is very much the person, the individual has applied this thought or this image to the social problem. So think about your social problem, go back through and listen to this as I've explained each one of the three theories, and see if you can kind of pick out a few more things. You can also just Google. All right, so let's say, let me see, I have some examples written here that some of you selected. Let's say that we're talking about abuse. All right, I'm totally fine if you start Googling how to explain abuse using social theories or conflict theory and abuse, structural functionalism and abuse. Some of those search terms might not turn up anything, but some of those search terms may get you to some journal articles, some news articles, things like that that kind of get your mind going. If you have additional questions or you want to do a video chat with me, totally fine with that. I would love to help you out. Shoot me an email, tell me what your social problem is. You want to have a conversation, you're kind of stuck here, and we'll make that happen. But for the most part, kudos to you guys. You started off great. Just go back, do some extra research, and really beef up this section right here, which was number 5. Reach out if you have any questions or concerns.